Okay, we've had a major escalation today. This is a new benchmark towards World War III. This move by the Russian government today is almost a guarantee that this is going to be one of the hottest years ever since World War II. My friends, you need to prepare. Do not become complacent. Yes, enjoy your life. Don't take cold showers if you don't like taking cold showers. Don't eat healthy if you don't like eating healthy. Don't take care of yourself and try to strive to be a better person. But in the very least, make sure that you are prepared for years of chaos. And I'm talking about years. There are three possibilities, three possible ways that this situation is going to end. One, nuclear Armageddon. That's one. I'm not going to estimate probabilities, but it's substantial if the Russians do not achieve their goals in Ukraine. Number two, if the Russians win, we're looking at the beginning, the death knell of the collapse of the US dollar. The entire fiat system crumbles, the NATO alliance crumbles, and it's the beginning of the end for the Pax Americana. Number three is that somehow, miraculously, through some back channel deals, peace is achieved, and guess what? We go to the moon. I'm talking about the markets. We don't just go to the moon. We go to the outer rims of the galaxy. We go beyond that to the edge of the galaxy cluster, all the way to the edge of the frickin' universe. Okay? You are going to see some insane bull runs if this war is resolved and we go back to business as usual. Holy smokes. Unfortunately, the likelihood of that happening is like 1%. Probably a lot less than that, unfortunately. Now, of those three scenarios, which one do I think is the most probable? Right now, my sensible brain is saying, look, it looks as though if NATO doesn't intervene anymore, which of course they're not because Poland's giving tanks now and a bunch of other things. If NATO stops intervening right now and the Russians use their troops and whoever they're going to mobilize and they go in there, they secure the 4 annexed territories and they feel comfortable, then I will say that the likelihood of nuclear war is low. If, on the other hand, we start sending more HIMARS, Poland goes through with the sending of tanks, which they've already guaranteed. That's now inked. That's a 100%. Zelensky met with the Polish president today. It's a done deal. They're getting 14 tanks. Not a whole lot, but it's just the beginning. That's the floodgates. One NATO country had to take the lead, which is what they did. Okay? And now you're going to have Germany, Britain, the US. They're all going to start sending the real heavy equipment. And when that happens, if and when that happens, if you start sending more mercenaries, if even Polish forces get involved, because now the Poles are going to be creating a new division of up to 25,000 men in the east. They are preparing, they're conscripting 200,000 troops. This war is spilling over. The reason why they're putting a new guy in charge, they're third in command, okay, the reason why they're third of command, the chief of the general staff is now overseeing the entire operation in Ukraine, is because the bigger the war gets, the higher up the chain of command you have to go. General Surovikin, known as General Armageddon, was not relieved of duty because Putin didn't feel he was doing a good job. In fact, he was given a Medal of Honor recently for what the Russians think that he did a good job, okay? This guy is being put into position now because they're positioning for a war with NATO. And when you're going to war with NATO, you need somebody up the chain of command. Now, Shoigu is the only person now that stands between the people governing this war and Putin. He's the Minister of Defense. So you have Valery Gerasimov. I'm probably not saying his name properly. I always butcher names. Gerasimov. Then you have Sergei Shoigu, Vladimir Putin. Okay? Before it was General Surovikin who was in charge, and he was commander of, forces. I can't remember what his exact designation was, but he was under the chief of general staff. Okay? And then you have your other guys like Kadyrov, the Chechen guy, and then you have the other guy, the Wagner guy, who is probably on this level as well, even though they're private contractors. And there's some fissures happening between the Russians and the Wagner group, and this is something you would expect to happen, and that could be one of the internal disputes that ultimately is Russia's undoing, at least their the military aspect of Russia anyways. So this is huge. This is huge. This signals what's coming. This signals that there's a major offensive coming. Now, we're going to talk about the situation on the ground with Soledar and Bakhmut and all of the things that are happening as well. But guys, listen, I understand this prepping thing has become back burner for a lot of people, because right now people are fixated on the culture war. People are enraged, and I'm seeing it more and more in the comment section as austerity rears its ugly head, as the penny pinching becomes more and more, and as people are just struggling to get by from paycheck to paycheck, the rage is going to intensify. And man, people are getting hot and heated in these debates. The attention is shifting away from the war, the highest intensity conflict, where hundreds of thousands of people have died already in a year. We haven't seen a conflict like that since World War II, where that many people were dying at such a rapid rate, okay? And it's only intensifying. It's only going to intensify this spring. Not even an issue for people in people's minds. We have this white lung, mysterious diseases creeping up in China. Something is clearly going on. China is on the brink of invading Taiwan. You have these economic crises. You have climate disaster after climate disaster unfolding. California is now drenched. What once was a drought is now a deluge. And unfortunately, they're still in a state of extreme drought, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, even after this major flooding. Regardless, you're going to continue to see dry interior regions of continents, and the coastal regions are just going to get slammed. 2022 was a record year for oceanic temperatures. Okay, I've showed you the heat maps before. I got all the receipts to prove it. It is what it is, but you know what's at the forefront of people's minds right now? The culture war. Because when times get tough, people fight with each other. Nothing has fundamentally changed in human nature, and we need to continue. All of these people, I'm listening to Brett Weinstein and Joe Rogan the other day talk about, we need to figure out, like Joe Rogan's like, we need to figure out how we can not make these mistakes again. And, you know, I don't want to hold people to account for how they treated me during the last 3 years with the whole virus circulating thing and his perspective on that, because I want to try to befriend them and change their mind. Joe, you are not going to change the mind of the masses. The same people will fall for the same shit the next time around. Mark my words, that fundamental aspect of human nature, that gullibility, that naivete, that complacency is not going to go anywhere. It's just going to change form. You can bet that when the next big dupe comes around, maybe not the same people, maybe another group of people are going to be suckered into something else. All you can do as a prepper is try to be incredibly critical. I go by the mantra, anything that's popular probably isn't true, in the sense that there's something else going on there. That's not to say that, okay, it's popular that, you know, the earth is round, therefore it's not true. I don't mean it like that. I'm talking more with respect to things in which there's cultural divisions around, and there's contentious issues, okay? Usually, if there's something that is being perpetrated as the holy grail of this and that, there's likely a bit more to it, which is not to say it's not real or anything like that. It's just saying that there's likely ulterior motives involved, and you need to be skeptical. But that also doesn't mean you jump on the alternative bandwagon train and act like you got it figured out. Like, yes, this is absolutely fake. You know, no, you could question it. You could say, okay, maybe they're exaggerating a bit. Maybe they're trying to exploit this for their own gain. Maybe there's wealthy elites who are making bank off this. There probably is. that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's a fundamental logical error that a lot of people make when they're trying to decipher what's real. You know, it's funny to me because these people, and I'm going on a rant here, but you know, this whole matrix metaphor, look, I must be getting old, but I've been on the internet before the matrix metaphor and the red pill was ever associated with conservatism. There was a time back in the 2008s, okay, in the 2009s, 2010s, what they called it, 2000s, there was a time when those things just were anti-establishment symbols. They were not associated with left or right. Now, they're associated with left or right, and they're now working towards the exact polarization they claim to be against. So all these people saying matrix this, you know, don't be a part of the matrix. I mean, it's old news, man. For people like me who've been around, who've been in the game, who've been in the truth-finding game for a long time, we've seen this all before. It's already replicating itself. So all I'm saying is that don't get too caught up in the anti-crowd, whatever issue you're on, because there is a thing called controlled opposition. And it's not even always intentional. It's just that people fall into these camps and they start fighting with one another and they get more tribalistic. And when times get rough, people are going to become more tribal. And times are going to get rough on every dimension. And even Nouriel Rabini came out today and he said there are 5 major factors that are making inflation inevitable. One is war, of course. The other one is going to be automation, because people are going to be turfed out of the workforce, and some people might say that this is deflationary. Unfortunately, that means that people are going to be put out of work. Now, maybe everybody's going to learn how to code and blah, blah, blah. Who knows? The other thing is climate making and just resource scarcity, okay? These are inflationary pressures. The other one, what is the other one now? Oh, there's 2 more. I can't remember them now. I'm on a roll here, damn it. Maybe they'll come to me. War, oh yeah, contagion, so there's the pandemic stuff. There's this new emergence of viruses and illnesses, and this bird flu now, which apparently is even being found in bears. Talk about a zoonotic nightmare. H5N1 with a kill rate of 60% in humans is now being found in mammals, skunks, bears, raccoons, red foxes. You know, it's very easy to just be overwhelmed and just be like, oh, well, nothing's ever going to happen. I get the normalcy Norman thing, but man, so much is going on right now. Okay, let's get back to World War III, all right? Sorry for going on that culture war rant, but don't fall for that, guys. It's all smoke and mirrors. They want us to fight with each other. Okay, this is by Black Russian on Twitter. I wonder if he's a fellow black person like myself, or mulatto person, or whatever you want to call us. I don't care. I'm just a human being, damn it. PMC Wagner inside the ancient salt mines in Solidar. All right, so the Wagner Group is in this place called Solidar. Solidar is important. Right now, we need to constantly remind ourselves that we're in a war of attrition. Many people are like, well, Bakhmut, it's a city of like, you know, what was it, 25,000 people maybe. Now there's virtually nobody there but soldiers and corpses. What does it matter? This is a war of attrition right now. So it's not about taking territory at this point in time. It's about how many guys can you throw into the meat grinder in order to kill the enemy. Okay, it's all about a numbers game at this point. So this Solidar, which is right here, so right here, and this, having control of this territory, you see how they're punching through here? That's going to cut off a supply route to Bakhmut, one of the supply routes to Bakhmut. So they're trying to do this encirclement of Bakhmut. I'm not a military guy. I'm not a military expert. This is how I've heard it explained. Okay, this is why it's so critical. If they are able to punch through Bakhmut just with the Wagner forces and, you know, a few Russian troops that they have there, they have thousands of troops there, but they haven't brought any of their new reserves. Okay, any of the new 300,000, and of course the 500,000 that, according to Ukrainian intelligence, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt, whatever, the next wave of mobilization, according to the defense intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Russia should announce on January 15th, meaning that they'll probably do it on the 17th, just to say, see, your intelligence is wrong. Will not prevent the Ukrainian military from conducting offensive operations. No, of course not. The last thing you want to do is impact the morality. Now, the Ukrainians are saying, hey, we still control Soledar. The Russians are full of you-know-what. But the Wagner group is showing a video here of them inside this salt mine. And these salt mines are very suspicious as well, because they are apparently 120 miles, okay? And these things are deep, up to 300 meters deep. And apparently there's all kinds of weapons being stored down here. I mean, if there ever was a doomsday shelter, it's here. And this is just one aspect of the massive industrial wealth of eastern Ukraine, which Russia wants to control. And this is the spoils. People keep saying, well, Russia's losing all this money in the war. And I said it already, there are trillions of dollars of resources and agricultural potential in eastern Ukraine that the Russians are going to use to replenish their coffers when this whole war is done. And they already control a significant portion of that territory. Now, like I said, if the Ukrainians push them back, if the Russians get pushed back all the way back into the motherland, then it's nuclear wartime. That's what the nukes are for. Okay? And if you don't think that there aren't people in Russia higher up who are willing to push the button, you have drank the Kool-Aid. There are people, just like in the United States, when I interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Jay Block, I asked him, because my most fundamental question was, how do you know that the people who are working that day are going to actually follow through with the orders to push the buttons? And he told me that they were thoroughly psychologically vetted to make sure that they would go through with the task. Now, you're telling me if you have what they envision as an existential war on their borders, you're not going to be finding people willing to push the button? Are you crazy? It might just be a demonstrative nuclear explosion. Demonstrative in the sense that it's not going to be targeting any specific region in Ukraine. They might do a demonstrative strike in Siberia somewhere, just to put the world on notice. That is going to be the escalation pattern. I do not think we're going to see the detonation of a nuke immediately unless it's demonstrative. That is my thesis right now, that the first thing we're going to see is a nuclear test. Okay, and that of course would be in defiance of the New START Treaty, which is already not being enforced anyways, because they're already building all kinds of new nuclear weapons, and they're just kind of moving it around. You don't need 10,000 nukes anymore because you have precision-guided hypersonic munitions, so you don't need that anymore. You only need 2,000 nukes to do what 10,000 could have back in the 70s, okay? So it's very likely that that is going to be the chain of events. So if Russia gets pushed out, like Ukraine is 100% confident that they're going to be able to do, you got Canada sending NASAMS anti-aircraft air defense systems. You have the Brits sending weaponry, contemplating sending tanks. You have the Americans who've already sent almost $100 billion worth of stuff. Now they're sending the light tanks. They're sending Patriots. Poland is preparing reserves. I mean, wake up, people. This is World War III. This is exactly what it would look like. This is exactly how you would expect it to unfold. It's not just Biden and Putin are going to roll out of bed one day and start duking it out. It's a gradual, incremental mission creep into Ukraine, which is going to bring us to the brink of nuclear Armageddon. And that's exactly what is happening right now. So in terms of Soledar, like I said, that appears to be what's happening. Now the Ukrainians are saying, oh, they're just saying that because they want to boost the morale of their Russian soldiers because they are planning on doing a mobilization in a few days. and they needed this victory to embolden the troops, to show them that we have the upper hand. The likelihood of you dying is very, very low. That's what they need to show people at this point in time, especially after the big story earlier this month where the Russian barracks that targeted, according to the Ukrainians, the 600, Russians say it was 100, doesn't matter. After that catastrophe, on the one hand, the population in Russia is fired up for revenge. On the other hand, that makes reserves scared. That makes conscripts scared to want to go to the front line. So the Ukrainians are saying this is all just a psyop. This is Russian state TV contemplating whether or not they should use nuclear weapons. There's one guy saying nuclear weapons will never be used. There's another guy flippantly saying, well, why don't we just nuke France? You know, if Putin's going to send tanks, then let's just nuke France. What are they going to do? So you need to understand, though, guys, even though they're probably few and far in between, there are these people within the Russian government who are very close to Putin, who are of the persuasion that you can have a limited nuclear war and that NATO will not come to the aid of its allies. That's one of the most fundamental things to understand. There are people who not only think that a limited nuclear exchange is possible, even many U.S. generals have said if Russia uses nukes in Ukraine, it won't escalate to the strategic level. There's also people who believe that the Russians can win an actual strategic war with the United States and NATO. Win is relative. Win means, do they have some measure of continuity of government that exceeds ours once the smoke clears? And, you know, the Russians right now, they've been under sanctions for many, many years. They are incredibly self-sufficient. In America, where people are stealing groceries in order to get by because the price of food is so high right now, where the cities are in chaos, where drug addiction is at an all-time high, where everybody's dependent on some measure of psychopharmaceutical drug just to get through their day, the shit's going to hit the fan. We've seen what happened during the COVID thing, right? I can just say it now, whatever. We've seen what happened. I mean, it was January 6th happened. That was the result. So just imagine a real SHTF scenario in that powder keg, culture war powder keg that is the United States, which is a country I love. Okay, I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea. And a country that is armed to the teeth. So there's a lot that can go wrong here. And the one thing the Russians have going for them is that they are nationally unified. They're homogenous for the most part in their beliefs. I'm not just saying everybody has the exact same beliefs, but they're more homogenous than the United States and many Western nations who've imported a variety of different ideas and even peoples of different, you know, it's very segregated in the United States still. Everybody's still very separated. That's a strength, but when it comes to SHTF, it could potentially be a weakness. That's why I say authoritarian regimes, people who all march at the same beat, they can get through, they can weather these storms because they're willing to make sacrifices for their country. Ask yourself if Gen Z is willing to make any sacrifice for their country whatsoever. There are people, and this is a pro tip for you guys, I'm giving you gold today. If you want to impress your employer, and get a raise, and be bumped up and move up the ranks, all you have to do, put in a little extra effort. Come in a little earlier. Stay a little later without the expectation of, you know, don't just, oh, it's 5 o'clock, got to get out of here. Work a little harder. We notice that, okay? That's all I'm going to say. We notice when people work hard. So, and I'm not just saying you can only get ahead through, you know, working for somebody else. You can do it on your own. But do you really think this generation is going to sacrifice anything when the time comes? Come on. It's going to be frickin' pandemonium in the streets. Vladimir Putin is reportedly near death. Oh yes, he's always near death, and they're always running out of weapons, right? Meanwhile, Biden can barely form a coherent sentence. the largest Russian military offensive since World War II. Yes, that's right. Have we covered all these bases here? There is an American general who was quoted as saying, I don't even have the notes here, something to effect of what I just basically said, that if Putin thinks he's losing the war, they're going to use nukes. They will have no choice. They are not going to let this go. They've invested way too much. They've put it all on the line. They've now declared total war. They've restructured everything into a total war economy. And now they have the third in command overseeing this special military operation. Come on. It's a war. And the putting Surovikin in charge, that was the next step. Okay? Now they're taking it to the next step. This is pretty much as high as they can go, because I don't think the Ministry of Defense is actually going to get that directly involved. This is really as high up the chain of command they can go, right? Because until, it's Putin dictating from his bunker. At that point, I have no idea what this is. There was supposed to be, oh yes, this is Polish Armed Forces. Let's see if we can refresh this page. I don't know what's going on here. Is this a bad website? Anyways, this was just a story that said that Polish armed forces are going to form a division on the border with Belarus. So that's all you need to know. Now, the big news of the day, more flight chaos, but it's not a cyber attack. Don't worry about it. According to, NDTV, U.S. rules out cyber attack as flights grounded. What we know so far, that is complete and utter BS, because all Biden said is that we're looking into it. They didn't rule it out. Do you think they would actually tell you? I mean, you're talking about the Southwest thing. Now this in a month. Wake up. It's obviously a cyber attack. Obviously. I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll admit that I'm wrong. But guys, come on. This doesn't happen that close. They're saying, a system that's used to send messages, very important messages, to pilots while they're in the air was down. I'm calling BS on that. I just don't think that that's what's happened. I'll tell you what, here's a theory for you, and one of you can write this into some sort of tinfoil hat script that you can make a blog about and get 1 million views. Maybe this grounding of airplanes is a trial run. Maybe it's a test run for World War III, because they're going to have to ground all the planes. If the shit really hits the fan and it's about to go down, we're about to go DEFCON 2 to DEFCON 1, there ain't no planes in the sky at that point, especially because of EMP, electromagnetic pulse. Those planes will be falling out of the sky. So maybe this is all a trial run. It's just an excuse to see how people are going to react when it all hits the fan. Maybe, I'm not saying that's the case. The more likely thing is that it was a cyber attack. I was just messaged yesterday by a person who's an expert in cyber warfare, who I've been in communication with for about 1.5 years now. They sent me more incidents of cyber attacks, cyber espionage that have been happening. And I forgot the name of the major hack that happened in 2020 where all the government information was leaked. That was the SolarWinds hack, okay? And that's still a thing. So the Russians, the Chinese, there's clearly a cyber war going on. There is a hybrid war going on. And hopefully that hybrid war doesn't cross the red line into an actual kinetic exchange. That's all we can hope for at this point. Okay? 5th generation warfare, that's where we're at right now, and that's hybrid warfare. You don't want to go to the nuclear level. We have domestic terrorists could take out the U.S. power grid. So they're already trying to blame it on domestic terrorists. They're going to say that they were radicalized by social media, or they were radicalized by Russian troll farms or Russian chat bots or whatever the heck. And speaking of which, Russia has said that they're now going to be utilizing AI. So here's the thing with ChatGPU, or ChatGPT, whatever the hell it's called, ChatGPT. I got scolded for calling it ChatGPU the other time. The thing with that is, imagine the civil unrest you can cause with that. I believe it was Elon Musk who said that one of the biggest threats of artificial intelligence is not that it turns into Skynet, but that could start a war. And it could start a war by causing people to fight. Like if you think the polarization we've seen in 2020, when all that stuff was going on, if you think that was bad, imagine what unleashing millions of these highly radicalized chatbots who are very intelligent into this powder keg. Imagine what that would do. Imagine how that would trigger people. Okay, it's not hard to push people's buttons online. And I'm watching these comments just get more and more and more intense. And we're reaching a breaking point, especially as the stress of inflation and all these things intensify. It's not good. So that is the other dimension of the fifth generation warfare, is just rallying people up online and organizing protests and organizing protests on opposite sides of the street so the two sides fight with each other. There are historically it's been actual people behind the computer, but you don't even need that anymore. I can only imagine what the United States is doing in China and Russia right now, trying to foment discontent. But I think that this whole FAA system outage, I think that that's clearly cyber related. They're not going to admit it, of course, because stock prices, right? It all comes down to stock prices. Speaking of which, there was also an outage in Canada today. How mysterious. Computer outage hits Canadian flight system hours after U.S. system went down. Now, is it because it's linked to the U.S. system? Maybe. So let's not jump the gun on this one, but Nav Canada, the not-for-profit corporation that operates Canada's civil air navigation system, reports that the Canadian Real-Time Safety Alert System for Pilots, otherwise known as NOTAM, short for Notice to Air Mission, has been hit with an outage. Interesting. At the exact same time. What a coincidence. Up to 8,000 flights were delayed and another 1,200 canceled. Right now, as we can see on flight radar, it is business as usual in North America. So the planes are back in the sky, or most of them anyways. A lot of activity here. And still a lot of airplanes coming out of China, where apparently there is a disease that should not be there right now, and that is white lung. We're going to invite a guest on the channel who's far more knowledgeable about that, because, guys, that's a big thing too. Like, there could be some biowarfare stuff going on. I just don't know. I mean, look, it's very easy to just put on the virtual reality headset and between taking breaks to go and fight the culture war in the comment section of some contentious video, but do not take your eye off this. I'm not saying base your life around it, but this region right here, where you don't see any planes, this is where it's going to go down in the next few weeks. According to MI6, British intelligence, the Russian offensive is going to happen in the next few weeks. Now, in fairness, MI6 also said many ridiculous things in the past few months. One of those things was like Putin was going to die right away because he had cancer and blah, blah, blah. They say some outrageous things, but that theory is corroborated by a body of other evidence that suggests that the Russians are planning on mobilizing. They needed the capture of Soledar to boost morality, just to make sure that the propaganda aspect of the mobilization goes off without a hitch. So it's looking like that's what's going to happen, all right? So yeah, blah, 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 bullshit. It was probably a cyber attack. But, I can't say anything with certainty. This is crazy. This is crazy. And what's crazier is that when the real pandemic happens, I'm talking about the real pandemic, and what we've seen is all it's going to take to spook the living you-know-what out of people is a fatality rate north of 2 or 3%. I think it was the Spanish flu. The fatality rate was very low. It was 2 or 3%. And that was before all the modern medicine and all this stuff. And that killed millions of people. So just imagine one of these viruses, which are like before SARS-1, there wasn't MERS, there wasn't SARS-CoV-2, there wasn't all these new coronaviruses are not in the cold form, but in this new form that we're starting to see in the last few decades. This is a new thing. Now, H5N1 avian flu is not particularly new, but a 60% fatality rate. People will say, well, high fatality rate, it's likely not going to spread. This white lung thing going on in China, apparently, and there's really no information coming out because they don't know if they're testing for COVID or if it's just not showing up in the tests because they're not testing for it because no information is coming out of China right now. Is it another strain that we're not going to be immune to and that's eventually going to come here and it's going to be more infectious and it's going to become the dominant strain and yada, 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 and so forth. But when you have H5N1 infecting all of these other mammals, and it's just everywhere, they're culling millions of chickens all over the world. It is out of control. It's only a matter of time before it makes a leap to humans, and then that's it. And then one of the other problems is that if we're going into austerity, that means that people are just going to be, poverty means that people aren't going to be as clean. People aren't going to be as careful. You're going to have more people relying on wild game. There's going to be more interactions between animals and people. So the likelihood of a pandemic increases when we descend down the socioeconomic ladder. It doesn't decrease, okay? If you want to know what's going on in China, and admittedly, this channel is a little bit anti-China. Like it's like one of those, maybe it's funded by the Taiwanese, I don't know. But they give you the inside scoop with respect to what's going on with this virus in China. It's the only channel you're going to find, for the most part, that is giving this kind of information. It's called Spotlight on China. And they're talking all about how, there's just crazy stuff going on. Coffins tied to roofs, people burning bodies in the streets, digging graves day and night. Just shit's hitting the fan. California, this is the drought map, okay? And this is before the rains came. This is exceptional drought. This is the worst it could possibly get. After that, it's just desertification. And now it's become slightly less arid, as you can see, but still all in a total. So this is still extreme drought. And now there's a new weather system coming in that is likely going to change things up again. So we'll see what will happen. Ocean temperatures hit a record high in 2022. And you can see that here. Look at this. Look at this. This is Climate Reanalyzer. This is a 2-meter temperature anomaly. So in the places where it's red, that's where it's well above normal. As you can see on the bar here, it gives you a gauge. Just go to Climate Reanalyzer. The entire Midwest right now is seeing record-breaking temperatures. Okay, and even Europe continues to not see winter, the better part. And a lot of people, a lot of Ukrainians are joking that this is karma for Moscow, because in Russia it's cold, and it's colder than average in Moscow. But we're not supposed to be seeing these extremes. It's supposed to be more balanced. But Europe has just been, seeing record temperatures, thousands of record temperatures. So that's good for the energy crisis, because that means that all that natural gas they have stored in reserve is not being depleted nearly as fast. All it would take for shit to hit the fan in Europe right now is for this, what do they call it, trough, to just move over here for a month or so, and then that's it. And I think that's part of the thing that's driving NATO to continue the war with Russia, is they're noticing, hey, our natural gas stocks are not being depleted nearly as fast as we thought they originally would, so let's just keep the war going. Maybe we will be able to survive with just LNG if this record temperatures continue. Sea surface temperature anomaly, let's see that. Okay, so this AMOC ocean current is on the brink of collapse as well. So you can see the red, this is where it's all record-breaking record warm, and this has been that way pretty much ever since I started looking at this. So it always appears to be in the red. And this is why the average sea surface temperature has been increasing. The ocean temperatures have been increasing. And this you only need 1 or 2 degrees. Look, guys, the difference between an ice age and what we have right now is 4 degrees. What was it? 4 to 7 degrees. That's all it takes to turn this into a ball of ice. So when people say 1.5 degrees, what the hell, you know, it's a lot. It's actually quite substantial and it's also in different amounts. It's not like everywhere just goes up 1.5 degrees. It creates these extreme imbalances. It creates more weather extremes because of the jet stream. Okay? What else do we got going on? Credit card balances reached a record-setting $866 billion in the third quarter of last year. Year-over-year increase of 19%, and the interest rates are higher than they've ever been before, and our sovereign debt is higher than it's ever been before, and food and energy prices will persist. Soaring food and energy prices could persist for the next 2 years. So they're saying, and this is from the World Economic Forum at Davos, for which there are 5,000 troops being sent to wherever it's being held in Switzerland, Davos, I guess, to guard the World Economic Forum. I guess, you know, I mean, it's a pretty serious thing. You get all those NATO people concentrated in one spot, and guess who's going to be there? Zelensky's going to be there. So I can't wait for all the videos and all the tinfoil videos about that. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a really thing. And this is the thing, guys. Back in the Dizzy, you know, it was the Bilderberg Group. It was the the Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, all these other, you know, they just keep changing the name. Same lineage of people. Rich people run the show, and me and you are just here. Global debt on track to hit 277 trillion this year, 360 trillion by 2030. Who do we owe all this money to? That is the question. The questions you are not supposed to ask. Is there anything else I need to talk about today? I don't know. What else is there? Oh yeah, Royal Mail was also interrupted by a cyber incident. So we got cyber attacks abound. Hybrid warfare is in full effect. Is there anything else I've forgotten here? Nouriel Roubini. Oh yeah, the 5 types of war. Let's see. Which was the one I forgot? Oh yeah, the war against rising income and wealth economy, or inequality. He's talking about domestic disputes. So the higher likelihood of a civil war. To make a long story short, Switzerland to deploy 5,000 military troops to protect the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos. Like I say, I can't wait to see the thumbnails that the redacted people and them start coming up with. And I can't wait for Russell Brand's, you know, they did it. Or look what they're doing. You're not going to imagine what they're doing. Yep, they're going to do it. Nothing's going to change. So you might as well just be a prepper because ain't nothing going to change. Coinbase has fired 20% of its workforce, warns of dark times in crypto ahead. I'm glad I got out of that. I'm glad, you know, back when it was at like, what, $70,000, that's when I was warning people about it. Remember early 2021, me and other YouTubers were arguing about whether or not it was going to be a thing. And I'm not saying that Bitcoin can't bounce back. If anything, you know, like I say, if the war ends, everything is going to the outer rims of the solar system, Bitcoin included. And everybody's going to be a genius again, and Meet Kevin and Financial Education, their channels are just going to skyrocket in popularity once again. And I hope it all works out, but I mean, well, you know, reality. Ocean temperatures, America is scared of TikTokers. Yes. TikTokers. America's scared. America should fear TikTok because apparently the Chinese, they don't have the same TikTok as we do. TikTok is just pure trash. And I don't even, it's not even just TikTok, it's the short style videos are just going to dumb us down into complete and utter submission. There's a reason why China has limited people's access to the internet to certain times, a certain amount of time every day, and you can only show certain types of content because they realize it's making us really, really dumb and self-serving. The narcissism on TikTok is, man, we don't have much time left. All I can say is keep on prepping. Price of food is going up. Don't buy that, you know, food crap that's like food in buckets. Don't buy that crap. I got to make a dedicated video. People are falling for that hook, line, and sinker. They're buying skids of that stuff. They're spending $10,000 on the crap that does not taste good, doesn't have meat in it, just has these artificial things that they know you're never going to eat. You're going to put it in a closet, put it in a bunker, and when the shit hits the fan, you are going to regret not purchasing some high-quality Mountain House or Peak Refuel from yours truly, because I actually care about my customers, okay? I'm not looking to the one-time customer. I want somebody who's actually, going to be happy with what... I hope you eat your freeze-dried food before the apocalypse happens, because then it's never going to be a waste. I just had a Mountain House meal today. It was beef stroganoff, okay? This is food you're actually going to want to eat. Maybe that's a bad thing because, if you're like me, you got no self-control. You're going to be dipping into your collapsed pantry way too soon. Anyways, guys, that's what I got for you today. Thanks for all the support. We're getting close to 1 million subs. I really do appreciate it. Some of you, man, you've been here since the start. I'm so, and I see you sticking up for me in the comment section. You guys know where I stand. You know where I came from, and I'm never going to change. I'm going to keep doing things, the same way on the channel till the bitter end, until they shut us off. I thought we almost got shut off the other day because I'm looking at my views and I'm like, that's strange. Views are like 30% of what they were. And then I looked around and lo and behold, pretty much every channel had their views slashed on that day. It was like 6 hours. So we all got canceled in unison. And I was thinking, well, as long as I'm not getting singled out, if they're going to cancel us all at the same time, that's fine. But as long as it's, me getting canceled yet, we are on TikTok. We haven't really diversified to other platforms. And the only reason why we're on TikTok is to try to bring some common sense to that platform. Everything we post on there is strictly educational, okay? Even though I'm considering doing some reaction videos just to kind of lighten up the mood a little bit. You got to have a little bit of fun this day and age. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say. Apparently, you remember that Oppidum bunker that I did the review on the other day? I did that reaction video too. Apparently, guess where that is? It's in Davos. Isn't that interesting? I mean, wait till Redacted and Russell Brand get a hold of that one. They're going to love that. Yeah, the biggest, most expensive, lavish, underground, nuclear-proof bunkers built for the apocalypse are being built just a stone's throw away from where the World Economic Forum is holding their international meeting. You can't make this stuff up, but you could. Whatever, in 10,000 years, nothing's going to matter anyways. So, guys, you take care. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Canadian Prepper out.